With 8 billion people on the Earth, things can become quite congested. Let's make things a little tighter by placing every single person on the Earth in one massive building. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Now let's find out whether it reaches the moon or not. First, we're going to talk about the Exceed 4000 and the Tokyo Tower of Babel. Building something to house every single individual seems like an insane concept, but believe it or not, this concept isn't that different from buildings that have already been presented. Take the Exceed 4000 as an example. This 4,000 meter tall building was proposed for Tokyo in 1997, with 800 levels to accommodate up to 1 million people. With this capacity, 1 out of every 14 people in Tokyo may live in this building. However, an even bigger idea was the Tokyo Tower of Babel. This structure was meant to be 6.2 miles tall and could house around 30 million people. Imagine Mount Everest with the Burj Khalifa on top. This gigantic tower could house the whole population of Tokyo twice over. A single building could easily accommodate Australia's entire population. Building such a tall skyscraper, however, is not as simple as you might expect. At the time of proposal, it was predicted that the entire edifice would take around 150 years to complete. If the Tokyo Tower of Babel could house 30 million people, a skyscraper 260 times the size of this one would be required to accommodate everyone on the planet. But before we start designing this massive skyscraper, let's take a look at what we've already built. Believe it or not, the global record for the most people living in a building is in Switzerland, not China, the United States, or Dubai. Les Lignans is an urban development in the municipality of Vernier, outside Geneva, that accommodates approximately 6,000 people. 1 out of every 6 individuals in this community lives in one solitary structure. The world's tallest building, the Burj Khalifa, can accommodate up to 10,000 people at any given time and is a mixed-use structure containing residential, office, and recreational facilities. To construct our giant skyscraper, we will need to go considerably larger and bolder. If we estimate 50 square meters of living area per person and a ceiling height of 3 meters, we'll need something nearly 800 times larger than the Burj Khalifa. This is going to be a very massive edifice. So let's try and start small and try and put all of New York City in one building. To accommodate the 8.4 million people who currently live in New York City, you need to construct 1,680 floors into the sky. This building would be 500 meters wide and 5,040 meters tall. To make this skyscraper more livable, we can add another 10% for basic utilities, bringing the total height to 5,544 meters. But what's it like to live in this building? Sure, the scenery would be breathtaking. When you gaze out your balcony, it's just like gazing out of an airplane window. But could you even walk out on the balcony? The air becomes less dense as you ascend, making breathing more difficult. This is why the occupants on the upper floors would need to be regularly supplied with more oxygen. Not only that, but the higher levels would have to be permanently sealed to avoid pressure loss, much like an airplane cabin. This means that you cannot open a window or step out onto your balcony at any time, rendering it useless. But living so high in the sky does have its advantages. Because of the high winds at this altitude, wind turbines could be used to collect energy and generate electricity. Another barrier is the lift itself. These typically travel at around 1.8 kilometers per hour. If you reside 1.8 miles up, it will take you an hour to reach the bottom floor. Even if we erected the world's fastest lift as seen in the Shanghai Tower, it would still take 15 minutes to reach the bottom. And as everyone who lives in an apartment building is undoubtedly wondering, what if the elevator fails or there is a fire in the building? Imagine a 3.1 mile hike made entirely of stairs. A building that tall just doesn't seem practical. So instead of building taller, we may build wider. To reduce the height of the building, simply increase its breadth. If we push this to the limit, we obtain a cube. A cube-shaped skyscraper that could accommodate all of New York City, plus 10% more levels for amenities, would have to be 1,115 meters wide and 1,115 meters tall. As a result, this structure would be just 35% taller than the Burj Khalifa and will only take up 1/3 of Central Park's overall space. However, this would not be as straightforward as it appears. It would cause disruptions to the skyline, air travel, and even the weather. It would also be very pricey. The Burj Khalifa cost $4.1 billion to construct. If we assume that something with 850 times the volume costs 850 times as much, the cube would cost more than $3.5 trillion. However, this is based on Dubai's costs. Building in New York is substantially more expensive. Therefore, the New York cube would cost $5.4 trillion. To put that into perspective, that amounts to around 25% of the United States' total GDP in 2021. In addition, the construction of the Burj Khalifa took 6 years. If you want to get crazy and estimate that something 850 times the volume takes around 850 times as long to build, the New York Cube would take 5,100 years to finish. But that's obviously a long time, and no one knows what the world will be like by then. The Earth Tower might not reach the moon, but it would be almost as tall as the moon's diameter. This incredible structure would have to have 800,000 floors, and it would peak at a mind-boggling 3,200 kilometers, or 1,990 miles. Depending on where you live here, you would see planes, satellites, and the ISS. It's somewhat ironic that most of the Earth Tower would be in space, well, above our planet's atmosphere. Forget about a balcony with a view of the moon, you wouldn't want to go outside unless you're wearing a spacesuit. Okay, so now let's talk about trying to piece the tower together. In addition to its own weight, it would need to support the weight of the entire global population. At about 356 million tons, this would already be nearly 1,000 times heavier than the Empire State Building. To provide everyone with clean water, add to that equivalent of 4.5 million Olympic-sized swimming pools that will be consumed every day. And I'm not even talking about food or other essential stuff here. The lower floors of this megastructure would be dark and gloomy, and there would likely be high crime rates as people did whatever it took to survive. The top floors would belong to the rich. They'd be dependent on the work of the lower levels. Life would be complicated in our giant new skyscraper. Infectious disease could spread at never-before-seen speeds. Overcrowding would lead to widespread mental health issues. But at least you have an incredible amount of room to enjoy outdoors on the ground level with everybody in one building. Only your elevator commute from the very top floor to the bottom would take you about 37 days. Now, a cube-shaped skyscraper that could accommodate the whole world's population would have to be approximately 6.8 miles wide and tall, or nearly 945 New York cubes. Surprisingly, this isn't as massive as the tower version. The World Cube would be as tall as the Tokyo Tower of Babel with the Jeddah Tower on top. It is nearly the size of Pelham Bay Park in New York, the state's largest park. But how much will it cost to build? Well, if we assume the same construction cost as for the Burj Khalifa, this structure would cost a little bit more than $3.3 quadrillion. If we wanted to build this in New York, it would cost $5.1 quadrillion, which is about 12 times the total world wealth. If we repeat the premise that it took 6 years to build the Burj Khalifa, it would take 4.8 million years at the same rate. And if the price wasn't already a major deterrent, this certainly is. Even if it only took 10 years, the world population expands by 1% per year, necessitating an annual extension of the World Cube. Although logistically challenging, achieving this milestone is still doable. When they designed the pyramids in ancient Egypt, they could not have imagined that their structures would be overshadowed by something 6 times their height. Did people 2,000 years ago believe that it was possible to visit the moon? It is impossible to predict what will happen as long as humans continue to invent, evolve, and push boundaries. For the time being, it is simply a wild idea, but perhaps one day, in a million years, we'll all be neighbors. What are your thoughts on this idea? Do you believe that we should aim to build skyscrapers around the world? Let us know in the comments below. For more building related content like this, like and subscribe to our channel. Want to know the wildest skyscraper concepts that were never built? Join us where we reveal the craziest skyscraper concepts that never became a reality.